get into the subject.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, co-founder and CEO of subject.com, and we have an incredible guest here today. I'm really excited. This is a dear friend, colleague, investor, teacher, but so much more than that, because that's just the personal connection we have together. And so this man right here spent 10 years in the NFL, was the Ivy League Player of the Year back in his time as a Quaker. Go Penn. You know, we both were able to share that experience together. Yeah. He also has been someone who's revolutionized the athletic space. He's helping college athletes be able to find a much better life within college sports, moving into the pros, and moving on in life with athletes.org, where he is the founder and CEO. This is Brandon Copeland, also known as Cope or B Cope, the leader in athlete education, and we're really lucky to have him as our financial literacy teacher. Welcome to the pod today.
Man, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, we're excited, man. This has been great. And so a little bit of story time for everyone here. So Brandon and I, we both went to Penn together. He was a year above me, and he was the big man on campus. He was Ivy League Player of the Year, training to go to the NFL. Every athlete wanted to be like him, and so I was really excited because we actually never got to talk on campus. He had a good, intimidating presence. It was just a stud. And then lucky enough, when I started Subject, formerly known as Emil, I thought this would be the perfect project to get him involved with. And so one of my friends on the football team at Penn, I reached out and said, hey, do you have Brandon's number? I think he'd actually be really interested in what we're doing. We got connected. He invested in Subject. So, again, you don't want to not disclose any potential biases, but he did invest in the business. We're so thankful for that. And then even more so, he stepped up and taught the same class that he teaches at UPenn, Ivy League level school, for our high school students. And so that's where I want to start is you are a kid from Baltimore, Maryland, and you end up being the Ivy League Player of the Year. How did you decide that you wanted to go to an Ivy League school and you cared about education?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, thanks for having me. And
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Good to be back. Reunion.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's one of those full circle moments. I think that so my grandfather played 11 years in the NFL, and one of the things he said in my rookie season is that if he could do anything differently, he would not play as long because he paid for it for the rest of his life with the injuries, the knee replacements, and all those things. And when I was in high school, I remember I was debating between trying to play big-time football. Football player, you want to play in front of thousands of fans and all that stuff. And I had an opportunity to go to Princeton, and Penn was in the running. And my grandfather was the one who told me, hey, you go get this education, you go get this degree, that's something that no one can ever take away from you.
Yep,
football,
never.
You never know. Your knee could fail you or whatever, but it's going to be a tougher road to get to the NFL, but I think you're good enough to do it. And so having the hero, or one of my heroes in my life between him and my mother, kind of pat me on the back and say, it's okay, go do this, like I believe in you, that's what gave me the comfort and the ease of taking that shot, because if not, I would have tried to play big-time football and do it that way. Having that degree, and I won't even say the degree, I think it's just more so you find out as you continue to grow up, and what the work we did here at Subject was, democratizing the access to an amazing education. You realize exposure equals expansion.
Yes.
And for me, when I went to Penn, frankly, I never thought I considered myself an Ivy League person or anything like that. The reason why I went to Penn was because it's in Philly. Philly is a bigger version of Baltimore. If I get tired of everybody on campus, I can go to Drexel Temple.
Yes.
I can go to a club, an art museum. Like, I can get away. It ended up being one of the best decisions of my life, because the natural competitive instinct I had on the field that also poured over into the classroom. And not that I competed to try to have a 4.0, because, hey, newsflash, I wasn't that guy. But when students would come back from the summer and say, man, I did this internship, or I did this, or I'm shadowing this person, or I'm talking to this person, or it would just make my curiosity. What did Morgan Stanley?
You're getting competitive, and you seek out ambition, and you also, just life is always a measuring stick, whether we like it or not. If you're in a town where it's really rare to go to the best state university, for instance. That becomes your dream.
Yeah.
And that becomes your dream. Like, for instance, University of Maryland was probably the dream of many students in Maryland. And it's a great school. Go Terrapins. Awesome school. But then when you get to Penn, your dream becomes, I want to work at Goldman Sachs, or I want to work at a hedge fund, because these two kids in my class are wearing suits to class every day and take it seriously. And I love that you brought that. And, like, I always talk about that with my upbringing. Where I went to school, it was cooler to get a golf scholarship to Northern Illinois University than get into Harvard. Oh, wow. Playing Division I sports was the coolest thing you could do, and sports were the culture. And so for me, it was really hard to want to go to a great school, because I wanted, and whether this is right or wrong, I think we all can admit, teenage boys and girls, but especially boys, are always trying to impress girls and be cool, and being cool is more important than anything in the world to you when you're a teenager. And that's why it's so dangerous in one way. And having role models like yourself is so powerful. And so you've been able to create such a following around financial literacy, around advocating for yourself. Like, how have you been able to take your lessons you've learned by being both an Ivy League graduate and a 10-year NFL veteran and help these kids realize, like, hey, you have got to prioritize education over athletics at a young age?
Yeah, I want to back up and answer something you just said. Or
go ahead, dive in.
I apologize. I know, I'm long-winded.
We love it. It's beautifully well said.
Today, but that impressionable note in that comment, right? Like, right now I have two boys, a third on the way, and
congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And my 5-year-old right now, he had his birthday party recently, and he's up in the middle of the jungle gym. He's like, hey, are my friends here? Like, where are my friends at? Right? And you kind of like, you want to coach people and say, like, it doesn't matter, you just have fun and all that stuff, but we're all human beings, right? Like, we want to be liked, and the people that we're around, which we've all heard those quotes, definitely determine our altitude. And so again, it's not even a shameless plug. When we got on this journey with subject, the reason why I was so interested is because my grandparents are from Mississippi, and there's one of the poorest towns in the country in Mississippi, and I think that they should still have access to a strong financial education and the best chemistry classes in the world. And some people may look at us as crazy for thinking that, but what you've done is you've scaled good soil. You've scaled good impressions around young people. And so, again, shout out to you for that, but I just wanted to
thank you. You're a big part of it.
Over that. Yeah.
Well, we want every kid, no matter what zip code you're born into, to have an incredible learning opportunity. Yeah. And I love that you called out Mississippi, which is such an incredible place and so much rich history and culture, but a considered low-performing education state at the time. And hopefully we can make change in that. Do you think that there's still a pretty big disparity depending on, what family and city you're born into, what opportunities you're given in this country?
Absolutely. I mean, depending on your zip code, depends on the amount of money going into your school system, depends on the amount of time your teachers and educators can focus on that school system, and also teachers overworked, underpaid.
Teachers and coaches both. I say they're the heroes of society, and we talk about it. I was actually talking to one of our colleagues this week, because we're really big on, like, hey, you're working 1 million hours, but you're going to get paid a lot of money, and that's our goal here at Subject. But until teachers are paid over $200,000 a year, which is what I really think they should be paid, maybe even more. I think teachers deserve at least $200,000 a year. But if that's not the case, we need to give them work-life balance.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be one or the other. It's got to be, hey, you're going to work a ton, but you're going to get paid a lot. Or you're not getting the most paid, but you're going to have an incredible work-life balance. But right now, they're staying up late to grade papers. They're getting up early to lesson plan. They're having to deal with the most sensitive, vulnerable population, which are children. And, if there's an issue that comes up, you can say, oh, hey, I got to clock out. I got to go home. Like, you have to help that child.
Right.
Those children are the future of society. You're building future leaders. And so I always say teachers and coaches are truly the heroes. Are you coaching or teaching at all right now?
It's funny that you say that. I
feel like you'd be amazing at both, obviously. Yeah.
Well, I teach at Penn.
Still in the off season. Okay, so awesome.
There's no off season no more. I'm washed up.
Yeah, what's that like? Do you miss it? Are you upset not being in training camp right now?
Not upset. I think last year was a little different, not having to report anywhere and wake up early and do a conditioning test. This year is, I'm sinking into it because there's a lot of other things on my
Yeah,
plate.
you got to be so busy right now.
Yeah, but I always miss it on Sunday.
Yeah.
When you see somebody out there, you see somebody let up the edge, or you see somebody you're like, man, I can still do that. That's what gets me. But
Well, actually, I want to ask you a question about that because I saw
Mhm.
something the other day that it really, and I played till I was 22 years old. You
Yeah.
played till early 30s.
Yeah, 30.
So, and a way higher level. So you have, but it talks about the adrenaline of coming out in a stadium is unmatched. Like, what would you say was your highest point in your career? Like the happiest, most proud moment of your NFL career?
Oh man, that's actually easy.
Yeah, it's fun to think about the emotions.
Yeah, 10 years in, I got to play with the Baltimore Ravens, which is my hometown team.
So cool.
So for context, I started with the Baltimore Ravens, undrafted free agent, 2013, practice squad guy, never got to play in a real game, and got cut after 4 weeks and ended up going to Titans, and roller coaster ride of a career since then. But then to come back there 10 years later, hometown team. My dream coming into the NFL was to be making more money off the field than on the field, and to have my kids see me play. And so the first game I came back with the Ravens was in the middle of the season. We played the New England Patriots, which is also my former team.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter of the game, go get a sack on Mac Jones that helps solidify the game for us, and then to get to hang out with the kids and stuff like that after and all that stuff. Again, that was like the full circle moment of like, okay, I'm good.
Well, and you're especially your oldest son. He'll forever remember that.
Yeah.
That's a special. And so, you talked about you played on the Pats, the Jets, I believe the Lions, the Ravens. I mean, you were so many cool
Atlanta.
cities. What was your favorite away stadium you've ever been to?
Ooh,
As
Seattle.
not the home team.
Seattle. I got the Chiefs stadium, but that was during COVID, so you could see how that would be really, really loud, but they had limited capacity. But Seattle I remember the first time playing in Seattle, I was with the Detroit Lions. It was Monday Night Football. It was actually the game where Calvin Johnson, the ball gets poked out on the one. Malcolm Smith hits it out the back. Yeah. We're supposed to get the ball back on the one. This is to win the game. Yeah. And then they called it a touchback and gave it to them. Detroit, hopefully all the Detroit fans out there, we always get the controversial calls, and everyone wants to learn from the mistakes on our games, right? But I remember during the warm-ups, just like, man, I'm finally playing in Seattle. It's 12. I'm actually playing, and I'm like, man, it's not that loud in here. Everybody was hyping it up. It's not that loud. And then the first kickoff, we're on kickoff return. First kickoff comes up, and they start playing Tony Montana, I want to say.
By Future?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, amazing. Let's go.
And I'm just like, and the whole stadium's just going crazy. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it was so loud. And then, so maybe 5 feet, 10 feet away from me is my other teammate. And we're looking at the people, and we're sitting there, and I'm trying to confirm that we're blocking the same person. And so I turn around, we got 52. And we got 52. And it was that loud. I was just like, this place is incredible. Yeah.
You feed off that fan energy, and being able to connect like that is so cool. But I also wanted to ask another thing about your NFL career, because you played for so many organizations, but especially thinking about Belichick and Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Two of the greatest coaches of all time, I think, pretty universally. What were some unique lessons you learned from both of them around leading organizations and really being a people leader? And I think they have a little bit different style, too, so curious what you thought.
Yeah, I think, as you say that, I'm reflecting on it and thinking about my own leadership right now. But
it's so cool. You got to learn firsthand from some of the greatest leaders, in the history of the world. And I think that's what some people don't understand around sports. And I think you can say the same for entertainment, theater, art, music. We just both happen to be athletes, and so I take an extra appreciation around this. These coaches are such great leaders. I mean, Bill Belichick is pretty universally considered the greatest coach in football history, I would probably say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I'll share with you as well, too, the viewers may want to see it.
I love it. The viewers love the stories.
Well, I will share. So when I was in New England, it was the COVID season, and I take all my notes on an iPad, on OneNote app. And I had a whole page dedicated to just Belichick and how he ran an entire organization, from how he prepared for meetings to how he coached up everybody and the details he attacked the job with. So, again, I'll share that with you as well, because you might be interested.
I would love to learn. Love learning from the best. It's always a good way to get better.
Yeah, I think the two things I'll learn, like you said, two completely different personalities. I think when I think of Coach Harbaugh understands how to let his players own the locker room, if that makes sense.
So
how to
like
let
Lamar,
them laugh, let them joke. Yeah, let them be themselves, if that makes sense. There's a tough way to say that because that could be taken the wrong way, but Harbaugh, the Baltimore Ravens locker room is one unique locker room. It's loose. You have fun working there. You're gonna work your tails off. It was the hardest training camp I've ever been a part of. You are going to absolutely work your tails off, but as soon as you walk on that field, you're going to have a shot in every single game because you know you're going to have fun, and you know that there's nobody that has worked as hard as you to prepare for that game. Belichick, he is a systematic culture builder, right? I love the fact that he's created a culture and a standard of excellence, and anything below that, like you won't even.
So yeah, who's policing that? I'm actually really curious to dive more.
The players.
That's the best type of policing, like self-policing.
Yeah, at this point in time. So the way I always describe it is, when I was with and similar cultures with the Ravens and the Patriots, in a certain extent, right? Like when I was with the Jets or the Titans or something, you would have some guys who would work out extra after practice. You'd have a Jamal Adams who put on the headphones and be running all around the fields after practices, after training camp practices, just to get conditioning.
He's
and stuff
amazing,
like that, right? You'd have guys in this gym doing certain things. I would do that as well too. We were outliers. The Patriots, you're just one of the guys doing that type of extra work to keep your body fresh, to create longevity in your career, to be better at your position. So like if you're lining up to do extra sprints after practice, you're not just by yourself. Like you probably have your whole position group or the whole team doing it with you.
Well, what's the motivation there? Is it more money? Is it more championships? Is it more respect from the coaches? Is it intrinsic? Like, how do you align incentives so you can motivate the team to put in the extra work?
Yeah, I think it's just Patriots and the Ravens also just have this culture of we want to be great. And
I love that.
You understand that in order to be great, you can't do what everybody else does. Like,
absolutely.
That's one thing I always tell, high school athletes, because a lot of them would do football camps and things, and I want to make it to the league. What should I do? What should I do? And I always tell people, like, listen, like, and college athletes, you want to make it to the league, okay, cool. When everyone else does sprints at the end of practice, they all do 5. How many do you do? Oh, I do 5 like everybody else. Oh, so you want to make it to a place where you know everybody isn't going to go, and you're not willing to do more than them, right? Like you can't expect to do the same thing unless you're just extremely uniquely gifted and just anointed by God, right? Like you can't expect to do the same things as everybody else and reach further distances. And so I think that in Baltimore and New England, that greatness is just inundated in the culture, and that's just been passed down from, when you have a Tom Brady who has, again, I never got to play with Brady, unfortunately, but all the stories, the documentaries, when you have somebody who is consistently just pushing their body to be better and better and better and better and better, even when they're already at the top, you have no excuse but to say, how can I get better today? And once you find a little answer to that question, you just do it.
Yeah, I say to the company here, get better every day, always be learning. It's that constant high-performance culture, and I love that you being able to learn so much from that. What have you seen as you transition to the business world and being a founder? Yeah. How have you been able to take so many of the lessons you've learned in athletics and directly apply them? I think there's a misunderstanding or just an unknown out there to realize, like, the discipline and the passion that it takes to play at the highest level of sports is so translatable, but you have to be able to reconcile your own identity, which you've already done so well because you've been working on this for years. You were always doing stuff off the field, whereas some athletes really struggle those first 2 to 3 years after athletics because they have not been planting the seeds and saying, hey, I know how I'm going to translate these skills.
Yeah, I think, listen, this is a guy I'm a guy who is working, evolving, and trying to become the best version of myself every single day. Each day get better and better and better. I'm
better
not
every
perfect
day
by any means. I am just trying to be a little bit better tomorrow. And what I've found is, as I've transitioned, is one, getting your schedule and your routine right and creating some boundaries is absolutely crucial and critical to you being able to spend time doing the things that you need to do to be successful.
What's your routine?
So morning time is my time.
Okay.
Up in the morning.
What time?
Still time, 6 a.m.
6 a.m.
I am better at, I wish I've tried the 4:30s, the 5s. And
I cannot do it at all. I'm a night owl all the way. I was just curious because I know there's a lot of hyperbole out there. Like, I was even watching TikTok last night, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of and J.P. Morgan Chase, and he's like, "Oh, I get up at 4:30,
and I read.
He reads 5 papers. He reads 5 newspapers." I'm like, wow, man, maybe I got to do some more. But I'm like, no, you're right. You got to find the schedule that fits your body to the best of your ability. Okay, so you get up at 6.
Well, even on that, because I always tell, I'm not a reader, right? Like we're gonna talk about
content
that I wrote, but I'll listen. I'll get spark notes. I'll break things down, but like trying to find what works for you and not what you see somebody else doing. Like, that's
double down on your superpowers. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, and we're going all over the place, but that's the biggest thing as an athlete. Like, I learned is there's a lot of people who won't look at the person in front of them. You always know. You'll have a line of people doing the same thing, and then what a coach will always say is, like, you shouldn't make the same mistake that somebody else just made, right? Like, you should be looking at them, seeing how they do it, and you should do it better each time, right? And so a lot of times we look at those videos and we just take it as, okay, I got it. That means I got to wake up at 6 every morning. If I don't wake up at 6, then I've messed up and I'm not on the Jamie Dimon track and I'm not going to be successful and I'm going to fail, right? Like,
I know. I do that all the time. Internalize, like, maybe I'm not doing enough. And but it's like I'm doing something every minute of every day to get better. And I know for me, my best routine is, sleeping as late as possible, and then just because pretty much from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed, I'm working, and I truly love it. Like, when I'm on the couch at home winding down, I am working on my laptop, and so I think that I've really tried to, like, to your point, triple down on my strengths, which is, I can work on something ferociously the entire day and never be disturbed, and then just also being able to connect more in person with people, kind of like this with you. And so I'm always trying to either be in the office connecting with employees and being able to inspire them, coach them, and spend incredible time together, or I'm flying directly to customers and prospects and trying to build that camaraderie. And that, sales in essence is really just a transfer of emotion from one person to another, and there's nothing better than being in the same room with someone and really letting them know how you feel about something, kind of like what we're doing today.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, doubling down on those superpowers is one thing that I learned from Bill Belichick that you see so many coaches make the mistake of is you have your vision for a play or how it's ran or how something happens, but you may not have the personnel, the players, to actually fit into that scheme. Yep. Bill Belichick is not the guy who's going to say, I want it done this way, so you need to be able to drop in coverage on third down and do this, and this as an outside linebacker. If you're better at rushing the passer, he's just going to say, let's not put you in your weakness.
Yep.
Let's just let you do what you do. And I'm going to get somebody else in there that they're really good at dropping, right? And I think a lot of times as leaders, sometimes we try to force,
pigeonhole,
square pegs and round holes and things like that. And sometimes it's our ego. And also, sometimes that's the job. Startup, you're running.
No, but you're right. That's something I think I've gotten a lot better at. And obviously I have a long way to go and I want to get better every day. But versus, we're about to be 4 years old, year 1 versus year 4, one, being more deliberate about what I expect and have that high performance culture and what role is for you. But then 2, to your point, if I hire someone, like, I'm hiring them because I believe in them. Let's give them the best opportunity to be successful in their superpowers. And I love what you brought up about being able to put someone in like the rushing the pass, or because didn't he change his entire defensive coverage for that Super Bowl against the Rams like 2 weeks before?
Yeah, yeah.
It's unbelievable. That's unheard of.
Yeah, every game Bill Belichick is, and that's something I did not understand about the Patriots defense before playing in it. Every week he adjusts the defense to be the best possible defense against that offense. So instead of him, and I guess the real business lesson here is like remove your ego from the equation. Just get the job done. It's not about who gets the credit. It's not about who does it right. It's not about, well, this is my system and I built it. Arguably the best coach of all time could literally sit there and say, this is my defense. It worked for Lawrence Taylor. It worked for this person. It worked for this person. And it's going to work for here in 2024 or 2023 against this team. Yeah. But no, he says, no, this is what they do well. We need to switch to be a defense like this to stop it. Remove my ego from it. Let's just stop it and let's win the game. And I think that that's another thing too. Sometimes we fall so in love with our idea that we don't necessarily fall in love with creating the solution. And when you fall in love with just creating the solution, now you can take that emotional attachment from your idea and you can just be working with your team, your pod, to create the solution to that play. Every time you come off the field, and I'm talking business too, right? Like there's a lot of innuendos going, right? But you come off the field and we all sit down on the sidelines. Hey, what'd you see out there? What words are you hearing? And why are you doing that? Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, next time, let's go in there. Let's do it this way. Whenever we see this look, we're going to switch it up and adjust, right? As opposed to saying, no, we trained it like this way. We got to stay doing it this exact way. And that's why you see some teams get
You got to constantly learn and get better and get. Is it true he doesn't drink coffee?
I don't know.
I saw Pat McAfee brought up to him like, I was gonna for the draft. They did that Belichick commentary, and he was amazing on that. And they said he was gonna get him like espresso martini, and then he found out he doesn't drink any coffee. He drinks alcohol, but he doesn't drink any coffee at all. But no, I was just curious too because you have so many great coaches. Is there any teachers from your time in high school or Penn that you really remember and really made an impact on you?
Yeah. There's a number of them.
Do you have a favorite class from Penn?
Yeah. So, you took Penn. Okay.
Oh, no, high school. Let's go. Yeah, let's give the shout out. Let's give them the shout out.
Yeah, well, the best classes at Penn for me, Penn and high school, are always the ones that just allow me to challenge the norm and to think. So we had one class was U.S. history. I'm going to butcher my teacher's name now, so I apologize. I've been hit with my head a lot of times, so we won't butcher his name. But what he did was he used to always make us challenge the norm and the status quo. And so, for example, United States of America, right? Everybody says it's founded by Christopher Columbus. Now, this is me. Before I say, let me get a disclaimer because this is subject.com. This is Brandon Copeland's.
If you need to take U.S. history class, go to Subject. But this is a good tangent.
Brandon Copeland tangent right here from my understanding of my high school class.
But see how much that impacts someone? Right? He still remembers it pretty vividly that we're about to hear an incredible story. And Absolutely. This guy is in his early 30s, and he's remembering his time as a junior in high school. Teachers, you impact the world. You're the heroes of society.
Amen. So do your own fact check, though. With that being said, United States of America, everybody dubs Christopher Columbus as founding it and all of that type of stuff. Obviously, there was people here already, but Amerigo Vespucci.
Yes, that's what you're going to go with it. Yeah.
Right? So Amerigo Vespucci truly finds America from the European side, and ultimately our understanding is because of a written mistake, a typo, it became the United States of America. As opposed to the United States of America. And so he started class off like that, and he said, look at the ripple effect of a mistake, of human error. There's human error every single day. So this is why you need to do your own research. This is why you need to look at things, because you will hear things and you just automatically take them as fact because someone of power told you them. But he said, even me as a teacher, I make mistakes. We got to double down and do our fact check and our research. And so that was just a number of different things that we started going into. And instead of us just reading he would also make us double down into, well, do you think this is true? Whose perspective is this written from? What biases do they have that you may be now taking from this information? I thought that was huge. In college, my favorite class was legal studies.
Was that Andrew Brandt or?
So I did Andrew Brandt. That was a sports law class, but oddly enough, legal studies negotiations with Professor Nicholas Rangione. And listen, I'm a professor now, so I'd have made it. It's okay. But we would always have the book, and we'd have to read text and all these things, but it was really a big debate class. So I would be light on the reading, but I'd come in there and we can debate. Debate.
The pre-reading class is pretty boring and tough.
Yeah, 40 pages to listen, 40 pages to just tell you your argument. I can tell you, I can make my argument happen. So anyway, that class was also amazing because, again, it was just challenging the status quo. We talked about things like affirmative action and gender equality and all those things, and we literally had healthy debates, differing perspectives back and forth, but everyone was able to walk out of the classroom and still be able to talk to each other, right?
Yeah,
but also by having those different perspectives, and now we're kind of getting to today's society, and I'm talking athletes.org and just the world and politics and all that stuff. By us being able to come to the table, have that dialogue, have those different perspectives and argue, even for the sake of arguing, because sometimes he would just make us choose sides and have to argue it. It also made you walk away with like, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of what you were going through when
you have to see the other side. And I think, I really believe that's where education is going, because with AI and all these toolings, it's easier to cheat than ever before, and we hate cheating. We want academic integrity, but having actual skills, especially those soft skills, vocal skills, do a video submission of yourself or have an in-class discussion. Like, we want to help teachers have more opportunities to do that, because that's where you develop the hard skills that are the ones that are going to be worth so much more money today, because so much of the mathematics and other pieces are really easily accessible with AI. And then I also, we were actually talking about this off camera a bit, but I think it's a good parallel. I think for me growing up, I learned a lot from Stephen A. and Skip. I loved Cold Pizza, then First Take. Like, I learned a ton from them because, to your point, even if you don't agree with how they're arguing, you're getting exposed to saying, oh, I took Stephen A.'s side coming into this debate, but now I can actually see Skip has a point. Or, I was on Skip's side, now I see Stephen A. has a point. And now you have these incredible folks like Shannon Sharp and all these incredible media personalities. But debate is so powerful. And for me, my favorite two classes by far were negotiations. I took one at Penn. It was a Professor Heng Chen Dai. Shout out her, she's amazing. And then I took one at UCLA Anderson as well, which was great. But to your point, it had nothing to do with books or reading. We actually simulated, and it was head-to-head combat in the classroom, competing for these deals, obviously faux deals, but that's what you're graded upon. That's what your final grade was. And I just would love to be able to bring that more into today's education, because I think still today there's too many classes out there that don't provide a lot of real-life tangibility, and it's hard to get kids to buy in when they don't see a value in how is this going to help me and my family.
Yeah, and I think it's also hard to find value in things when they're not talking to you in your language, right? And so you all removing ego and saying, hey, how do we make this content, these courses, engaging? How do we put the premium, high-quality production content that you're used to seeing on Instagram and social and your favorite podcast, your favorite TV show, but then, a lot of people don't necessarily think about, well, what would attract a young person's mind today who's growing up with TikTok, who's growing up with, Roblox and all these other things. And so, again, it's speak my language, right? Like, if you want to talk to me, that's why I love those debate shows. It's like, you're showing people how to develop the you're convincing people and persuading people of why your side is right. You're convincing people to see the world the way you see it, which is it's the hardest
thing to do. And I love that you talk about speaking your language, because again, we love these chats. It's been so great to have Cope on the show today. But when we talk about speaking your language, there's one universal language across all, and especially in a very polarizing political environment. Everyone has their own opinions, but there's one color that we all can agree on, and it's green. And so with that, we have the Your Money Playbook. This is an incredible book that we're hoping can be a New York Times bestseller by the beginning of next year. How to understand your money is so important. Every single person in this world, whether it's one penny or hundreds of billions of dollars, aspires to be able to provide for their family and give their kids and themselves a life that they enjoy. And at the end of the day, everyone's striving for happiness. And of course, money doesn't necessarily buy happiness, but also removes a lot of dishappiness. And so why don't we give a shout out to your book as a great parting tip to our listeners out there. Again, it's Your Money Playbook. This is launching on, you said September 10th. September 10th. Make sure you rush out to get this book as soon as possible, whether it's in hard copy or on Audible. This is a super powerful lesson. Tell us about the book. What do you want the listeners to know?
Yeah, so you can get it at brandoncopeland.com/playbook. So appreciate the plug there, and brandoncopeland.com/playbook. And, when we wrote this, I think first and foremost, it's when I say we, I always talk about my team, right? Like I don't have the ability to be in all places at one time, but I have an amazing team, amazing support system, amazing wife, amazing family, amazing brother who help empower these crazy visions of mine to come to life. Financial confidence is what most people in this world are seeking. It is really hard to walk outside of your door and feel good and have your head held high if you don't understand how you're going to make ends meet this month or 5 months from now, or how you're ever going to be able to afford that dream house of yours. And so with everything in life, it's an evolution. And so what we did with Your Money Playbook was we literally broke the money journey, your life's money journey, down into quarters like a game. What should you be thinking about in quarter one? What should you be thinking about in Q2? Now you got quarter one in order. You figured those things out step by step. Boom. All right, I got that substantiated. Let me go to Q2. Halftime. Halftime is important. Every sport that you know of has a halftime. Every major sport has a time where you can break, relax, reevaluate.
Take your shoulder pads off.
Yeah. What did we just do there? Why were we messing up? We had a whole plan coming into this game, but life just started lifing. Let's get back on track, y'all. Let's get back on track, right? And you can evaluate yourself and then keep going. And so this thing goes from literally how do you prepare yourself to even do a budget? How do you get your stuff in order so that you can understand what pennies are coming in and out of your house? All the way up to, okay, now I've mastered my finances. I know where everything is. I'm going to keep growing and keep learning from some of the best in the world and other mentors. But also, now it's time to make sure my kids are good. Now it's time to make sure our insurance is good. Now it's time to make sure my family is bulletproof in the sense of I want to make sure that, hey, if I stub my toe, I would say this, and forgive me, if I stub my toe and I bleed out today, my kids are going to be good. Hopefully they're not celebrating because they're that good, right? But ultimately they feel like, okay, Daddy was really putting things in order for me and blocking and tackling for me when I didn't even know it. And so it's all layman's terms. There's a lot of stories in there from my childhood. It's a lot of things. It's also unlearning some bad habits as well too, unlearning some preconceived notions about money so you can get out of survival mode and move into thrive mode. A lot of people don't know I was signed up to drive Uber when I was a Detroit Lion. I had $243 in my bank account. I was in my mom's car, 2015. First week in Detroit. I love Detroit, but y'all got a lot of potholes. I hit a pothole, my windshield cracked, and Uber would not let you drive with a cracked windshield. So literally the only thing that kept me as an NFL player from driving at that time was the fact that I cracked my windshield and I couldn't afford to get it fixed. And it probably worked out because it had me focused on football. But ultimately, when you look at me, a lot of people see where we are today in the beautiful studio and set and all those things, right? But ultimately, they don't understand that this guy worked at Walmart night shift. He used to bounce at smokes at the bar up at Penn, right? Like I am the ultimate worker, right? The ultimate worker. And so all of those experiences are in this book to help you take whatever you have and maximize it for your own life.
And so that's a great way for us to be able to reflect as a team here and say, hey, if you're not willing to be a beginner at anything and be able to sacrifice and lower that ego for a moment or two, you're never going to be an expert. And so, Cope is such a great, friend, mentor, and inspiration to us in that saying, hey, if you can be able to put your mind to something and really invest in your education, invest in the S&P and you, it's the best investment, not the S&P 500 and the S&P and you could become someone really powerful that can really provide for yourself and one day a family. And so we're really excited. We're so thankful to have on the show. Again, remember, we're trying to get Spotify and YouTube up. Click, like, and subscribe down below. YouTube and Spotify, we really want to increase our followers. That way we can bring more incredible lessons to you. And thank you again so much for being on the show today. It's incredible to host you. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Cope.
Appreciate you having me, as always, man.